Hey, Savages and sports fans, welcome to the Greg Medford Show. Greg here with you, Phoenix, Arizona. We have a guest today. You know, we have taken on this mission as the third leg of the milk stool of the American democracy has abdicated its role. They've become derelict in their duty. They have become part of the propaganda wing of the leftist, Marxist, commie, dirty, rotten, better dead than red bunch. That means us citizen soldiers who used to pick up a musket. I picked up a musket when I was a kid for the country. But us citizen soldiers, our mission is not over. And we have to still kind of be shining light on things. And we have to speak truth to power. One of the best ways to do it is to get folks who reside in the power strata of America, pull them in by their grace and their gift of their time, and pull at their experience and what's in their brain and what's going on in this God-blessed country that is so awesome and occasionally so effed up, it's hard to be hopeful. Interestingly enough, my dad calls me up a couple times a week. God damn it, kid, I see what's going on. Just talk me off the ledge. And so my dad's a clinical psychologist. So I said, all right, Dad. I talk him off the ledge. I go, it's going to be okay. We let these people come out. That was the best thing of Trump. We found out who the dirty, rotten commies are. Now we have them all identified. And although we can't pick them off the wall like I would prefer to emotionally, we can now go after them politically. We can go after them with facts, and we can crush them because they have no argument. So part of that is getting wonderful guests in, and we have one today, Congressman Andy Biggs from the 5th Congressional District here in Arizona. Pleasure to have you. Thank you for coming in today.
Greg, great to be with you. Thank you. It's good to be with the whole team.
I love that.
What a great crowd you've got here.
It's a lovely crowd.
It's a handsome audience.
How are you doing today?
Very good, thanks. Great to be here.
Hey, do you mind if I call you Andy while we talk, since we're two fellas over?
No, call me Andy.
Are you Mormon?
I am.
All right. My whiskey's safe then. I'm happy about that. The last guy that was here just was plowing through the whiskey. I know better than to bring a blacksmith in anymore. I had a blacksmith on the show talking about blacksmithing, and I was like, the conversation got saucier at the end. But I was like, my bottle of Macallan's disappearing. No, it was great. Tell us. So you were born you're born here in Arizona. You're a local boy, right?
Yeah.
Tucson, right?
Tucson. That's right. Raised in Tucson. Actually, was down in Tucson a couple of weeks ago, and I went by the old hospital where I was born. And you see some of the old stomping grounds, and I was on my way to and from the border. So. Yeah,
the hospital here in town where I was born is now a parking lot. It's Good Samaritan's parking lot.
Oh,
hey, so you're an attorney. You went to ASU, right?
U of A for law school, ASU for grad school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where'd you do undergrad?
BYU.
Okay. All right. I had to go up to the mothership, check in for a little while.
Yeah, we sure did.
For those of you who don't know, here in Arizona, we have the largest concentration of Mormons in Mesa, Arizona, outside of Salt Lake City in the world, I believe, right?
Pretty close, probably.
It's the satellite mothership.
Yeah.
You were, how long were you a practicing attorney for? What kind of law did you do?
I call it dirty shirt lawyer. If you walked in the door and had a check and had a problem, I was going to try to help you out.
Okay. So you're just scrounging away to make a living
as
an
attorney?
Yeah,
but I did a lot of trial work. A lot of trials.
So litigation stuff.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
How long did you do that for?
Probably 10, 12 years.
And then decided somewhere along the way that
I've been repenting for like 30 years.
from your time as an attorney?
Exactly. I did some international legal work later on, though, in the 90s. So,
okay.
So that was interesting, too.
You did a mission also in Japan, I believe, right?
That's right.
Fluent? Are you still fluent?
No, not still fluent.
You were pretty fluent after being there, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I read. I could read pretty well, actually. But my son is fluent. He's good.
Really?
Yeah, he's really good.
So did he mission for the church over in Japan as well?
He did. He was in Tokyo.
That's great.
And I was down west.
And so you guys can pull off some shenanigans when if you're out together talking to Japanese with each other.
Oh yeah, if we need to in the family, sometimes you have to go right into Japanese so we can talk to each other.
Yeah, if there's press or women around.
You got to be careful.
Yeah, no, it's like I really don't want to be shopping right now. I don't know how you say that in Japanese, but
Yeah.
and that's one of those languages. I'm sure that's a really diminishing skill. I mean, my contact with it, it's it feels like a very mysterious language to me. And unlike the Romance languages or the European languages that have so much crossover familiarity, everything in Japanese, other than like telephone, everything in Japanese is like a completely bizarre word.
Yeah.
Like it has nothing to do with anything that we can relate to.
Right. I mean, that's true. The nice thing about Japanese, though, is it's a very patterned language, pattern oriented. And so once you learn the patterns and the sentence patterns, you can get it. But I just remember like the first day I'm in Japan, right? And you go, and I've been taught this really formal business language. It's a very hierarchical language too. And I go and I say something like, "Hello, I'm Andy Biggs, and I represent the church, and it's great to be with you. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" And they said something back, and I learned that moment. They taught me how to speak. I don't know how to listen. I don't know how to hear it. And that's really a key to any language.
When you go off on a mission, sorry I get distracted on this is interesting, but if they're sending you off on a mission to Japan, how far in advance do you know? And do the Mormons have like a military language school where you get to go kind of get a little boned up, or do they just send you off to preach the word of God with 12 words? I mean, how's it go?
You find out several months ahead of time, especially if you're going foreign, because you got to get through the passport and visa process for sure, and health process. But then you go into a language training area, missionary. They call it Missionary Training Center. It's in Provo, right off BYU's campus, and they teach I don't know how many dozens, maybe 80 languages, maybe I don't know, just a lot of languages.
Yeah.
And so I've had a daughter, two daughters learn Portuguese, and one of them was down in Sao Paulo to learn Portuguese. That's where their missionary facility is. One learned French, and then the other one Japanese. So we've had all these languages in my family.
The guys, I don't know what the caffeine and liquor status is of Mormonism, just as a local Arizona, and I was always like, we got a Mormon kid with us, so we're not going to DUI. But you guys miss out on a few of the perks, and then you miss out on those, but then most Mormons are polyglots, so it's pretty cool. It's a cool perk for being chased on these other areas.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so I told my wife, I said, BYU, the nice thing about BYU is it's got to be the strongest foreign language university in the country, because so many people come back and they're fluent.
Because half the school's fluent in a foreign language.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
right.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's get off to other things, okay?
Let's move to depressing things.
Well, no, not really. I'm actually, look, it is a complete shitstorm, and I'm energized by it, and I was pissed for 10 months. I was mad, and I got family and a business and everything, so I'm reasonably kind of rooted into being a law-abiding citizen, but there's one degree of too mad that a lot of people I think got close to. Talk to me for a minute about the Trump presidency. You've been in politics for years before he got there, the politics of when he was there, and the politics since he's left, unfortunately. Talk to me a little bit about what was it like in Washington? What was it like when he was there? How did it change? Like, can I maybe preface the question? Wait a minute. Give us the real quick executive brief. What's Washington, D.C. like?
So Washington, D.C. is a company town, and the company is the government. And it's a bureaucratic town. So a lot of these people, they go and they make money. And if they're in the higher echelons, I'm talking cabinet officials and senior management, they're going to come in, they're going to work for an agency, and then they're going to go out and make a bunch of money working for some either lobbying, consulting, something.
So they're going to private sector back to the agency they got to know the inner ropes of.
Exactly. And so it's a town on the make. Everybody there's on the make.
Yeah.
And I'm not even getting to Congress yet. I'm just talking about
the people.
The people. And, you got 93% of them are super uber left-wing Democrats, and 7% are Republicans.
Is that a real number?
That's a real number. That's a real number.
Now that's outside of the declared 435 and 100 members, and outside of the elected officials. It's an almost exclusively Democrat town.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
so we'd be better off. Okay, I'm not even going to say that. Yeah. We'd be better off just flushing that thing.
Greg filtering.
Look, it almost never happens. It almost never happens. Okay, so it's a town on the take. I heard President Trump say something during office. He goes, I've done business in a lot of places. I've never seen a corrupt place like Washington, D.C. It's the worst corrupt place. Way worse than I imagine. Way worse. Worse than New York. I mean,
well, he said one time, one of my favorites, I can't match your Trump.
Oh, it was awful.
But I will just tell you, I heard him say one time, turns out the swamp is deeper and wider than I thought it was.
Oh, yeah.
And it really was. And so I did work at the UN for a few years, doing international multilateral institutions, doing legal work. And I'll tell you, that is the only place I've seen more corrupt than D.C., and I'm not even sure that I can say that anymore. I mean, the UN, you go in and you expect it to be corrupt. D.C., I went in expecting it to be corrupt. So I guess I'm cynical on that stuff. But
how corrupt is it? Okay, so you just talked about the people, and I have faith in the greed of people, that everybody's touched by the greed at some level. Talk to me about our 435 members of Congress, our 100 senators, and our kind of elected crew in the Supreme Court. How are they? Are they mostly good people trying to do the right thing, or are they corrupted?
I think there's a lot of people that really come in motivated. I think a lot of them hang on to that and they stay motivated. They want to do the right thing. They have, there's a lot of my colleagues, Republicans. I love them. Most of them, they're trying to do the right thing. But there is this small center, this area, and their influence gets concentric, goes out, and spreads out like a rock in a pond. And those are the people who like the swamp. They like power. They like the affluence that comes with it.
And that's both sides of the aisle, right?
Yeah. And so they're a uniparty. They form this uniparty thing. And so, look, I'll just tell you, I had the National Republican Congressional Committee. These are the ones that are supposed to support Republicans, who are not supposed to play in primaries.
Right.
They put $350,000 against me after I won, to fund 2 lawsuits to try to take away my electoral victory in the primary. And that's because probably I was really conservative, said I joined the Freedom Caucus, all this stuff like that. And that was the first, and that was before I even went back to D.C.,
So this is kind of the crux of what we observe from the outside, and it's hard to get clarity because we don't stand in it every day, and you get a chance to swim in it. There's really kind of 3 parties in Washington. You've got honest brokers on the right and honest brokers on the left, too. There are good-hearted, fine people on the left, I imagine. And then there is a jaded, you didn't shake your head, yes. Are there good people on the left?
Well, so when you say good people on the left, I would use it, there are sincere people on the left.
They're wrong.
Right.
But their heart's in the right place and they're not corrupt.
Right. Yeah. This one, when I say sincere, I think these are people, they're lefties all the way. You can't get more left than they are. But some of them sincerely believe what they believe. But what comes with that sincere leftist belief is authoritarianism.
Right.
Which isn't good.
So from the outside, as Americans looking into Washington through, the news crucible, which is a bullshit filter, if there ever was one, it's a corrupting filter. It's a propaganda filter.
Sure.
We look into Washington and everybody thinks there's the left and there's the right and the and then there are moderates in the middle. But really what there are honest broker lefties, honest broker conservatives, and then there's a corrupt power class in the middle that seem the same side of the same coin. So we call them the Republicans rhinos, the Democrats, they're mad at the moderate Democrats because they're not radical enough. But it seems like there's a corrupt pool in the middle. It's not centrist.
Yeah, so I would just add one segment to it that I think maybe people aren't seeing, but it's what Donald Trump went to Washington, D.C. to confront. And that is this power structure that's in the middle. I mean, it's in a really small elite group in Congress anyway. Mm-hmm. It's the Chuck Schumers, it's the Mitch McConnells, it's the people who actually run that darn place. So when Nancy Pelosi,
You're saying they're corrupt.
well, I'm saying that I don't know what their motivations are.
Okay.
But I do know that that it appears to be that it's self-aggrandizing and it's to maintain power. Now they may legitimately believe that if they had all the power, the world's problems would be solved. I don't think that's the case.
Right.
But
every dictator in history has thought that.
exactly. But that's the point. It's this small group, and they're there, and they're co-opted. They're co-opted by special interests, big businesses that are funneling big amounts. I mean, obscene amounts of money in to. And it's a chicken and egg deal. So, but they're going into the leadership of both parties, and I think that this uniparty thing is real. It's real. Look, I have a bill, for instance, at one time, how to pay for building a wall. How to pay for building the wall. You build the wall, you pay for it. And I'm introducing the bill, and it gets assigned to 7 committees. 7 committees.
Right.
Well, what that tells you is I'd never seen that before recently in Arizona, where the speaker here said assigned a bill to every committee in the House. I'd never seen more than 2-3 committees.
Because that usually sends it to purgatory. It means it's dead.
You can't do anything with it.
Oh, we took Congressman's big bill. We sent it out for review.
Yeah, right. And so I go in and talk to the speaker at the time, which is because he was a Republican speaker at the time. I said, look, how can we sign this bill to 7 committees? Oh, it's too controversial. I said, how is it controversial to do what we said we'd do that you campaigned on and every Republican campaigned on, which was to build a fence? And President Trump said, we'll make Mexico pay for it. And this is the closest way I can figure out to make Mexico pay for it is to tax remittance payments going to Mexico.
Right. I see cowardice on a corporate professional level. I see cowardice, and I see the biggest thing, lack of accountability. There's no accountability. When is the last time somebody threw the king in the guillotine? When is the last time anybody...
Metaphorically speaking.
Metaphorically. When is the last time anybody got run up the flagpole for breaking these laws? How can it be legal to take money from people that you're there to protect your electorate from?
Yeah.
To collude with them. How is that legal? How is it legal to trade stocks? I've just been reading about the stock trading that's going on with congressional members, and I'm flabbergasted. I mean, they're in on it.
Yeah. So Nancy Pelosi nets $31 million supposedly, right, in a recent trade.
She's really smart, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's amazing how many people come in and they don't have that kind of financial acumen until they get in Congress and get some inside information. How about Blumenthal? I mean, you start looking at the number of people that have made incredible amounts of money.
Yeah. It's a business going there for a lot of people.
And that's where you see the corruption. Those people, though, I get the feeling from looking at some of them, not the Nancy Pelosi, but some of them that are more rank and file-ish, they don't even really want to be in leadership. They just they're in on the grift. They want to in on the grift, and that's the way to get the grift. And
I agree. I've been just around invited to a couple things over the years and been in Washington, and it looks to me like a grand lifestyle of cocktail parties and hobnobbing.
I hate the lifestyle. So I because you
look at me. I live out in the desert, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I look. I would rather be in Arizona any day of the week. But a lot of these people, and it, by the way, it isn't. This is the thing. The part that people don't see. It isn't just elected officials, because elected officials, by and large, don't run that town.
Right.
It's
the permanent bureaucrat staff.
It's the bureaucrats.
Yeah.
It's the lobbyists and special interests. And by the way, they love that lifestyle. I mean, a little shrimpy, a little crab, whatever it is. And,
welcome to town, Congressman. Let's show you how it goes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I'm not that way. I don't go to those.
So it's gross.
It's gross. Yeah,
Okay.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, because I'm grossed out by all of that. I get invited to parties, and I end up at the parties, and I'm walking around, and I'm like, I'm the only dude in this room who will call bullshit.
Yeah.
Great to meet you. Awesome. What a great experience. I'm like, we just had a 12-second conversation. What do you mean it's a great experience?
Hey, well, I'll tell you, Greg, just 12 seconds with you it is a great experience.
Look at you. I got a baby to shake out in the hole.
Exactly.
Tell me about the Trump presidency. What happened when he came to town? What did you sense? Were you as surprised as I was? I mean, I was in love with the guy before. I just thought I was going to get some Supreme Court justices. I was going to block some dirty commies, and then we'd be back to a Clinton or a Bush before long. And then he showed up and did what he did, and I was like,
yeah. So here's the thing. I fell in love with him at the debate. 17 people. So I'm running for Congress for the first time when he's running for president.
because you'd be in jail.
You'd be in jail. So you got 17 Republicans. This is a primary debate.
Yeah.
I'm getting 24/7. I'm finally home for dinner, and I said, "Okay, we've got 30 minutes while we're eating. Let's watch this debate." And I turned to my wife and I said, "One of these things is not like the others, and it's Donald Trump, and he's totally different." And so my thought was, and we immediately said, "He's our guy," you know. But the reason is, I was going to D.C. to shake things up. That was my intention. And he was going to D.C. to shake things up.
Yeah.
And he did. And you know he did because immediately the establishment class, which is the Uniparty, the swamp, whatever it is, they freaked out and they went after him. And we found that out. I mean, Durham's filing last week. I mean, this is so important. Old news. We knew this.
We've been watching this go on, and
Yeah.
I'm like, how does nobody else see this? Because I'm out here in Cowtown and I see it.
Yeah, it was real. So Trump is, he had some bad people that were kind of trying to work with him. So Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, I won't say they're bad guys. What I will say is they're entrenched. They're part of it.
Yeah, they're the wrong guys. If the boss is there. They're the wrong guys if the boss is there kicking over tables with a whip.
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, so an example was we all campaigned on clean repeal of Obamacare. Not a repeal and replace, but a clean repeal of Obamacare. And that's part of our platform. That's what Trump ran. Everybody ran on it. And the first meeting we have, this is before I'm sworn in. The first meeting we have, the speaker says, "Okay, we're going to do this in 3 buckets." And I said, "Wait a second. I've done policy making. You don't need 3 buckets if you're doing clean repeal. That's a 1 sentence. This statute is repealed effective this date." I introduced language that said that, and we're doing it in 3 buckets. Are you kidding me?
Right.
And it was not going to be a clean repeal, and that's when I actually had to go. The only member of Congress I really knew at that point was Jim Jordan. I went up to Jim and said, "What does he mean with 3 buckets?" And so Jim's trying to explain this to me, and I said, "Here's the deal, Jim. You need to know this because you're tops in Freedom Caucus, and Mark Meadows needs to know this too, and I'll tell him too. If we don't do a clean repeal and put that on the floor, you have to put that on the floor. If we're not going to put that on the floor before January 20th, when Trump's sworn in, I said, I can't support any fake repeal. I will not vote for it," which I never did vote for it. And they never did put another clean repeal, even though they passed it out of the House 60 times. When Obama was there, and Trump wasn't there to sign it. That's, to me, that's the most
phony.
It's exactly
phony.
It was the most telling thing to me.
Me too. I saw it, and you guys have been doing this for 4 years. You've been lying, and now you're here in charge, and you're not going to do it because you're scared or whatever.
Yeah,
because of the insurance companies that are giving you money, or who's giving you money?
Big pharma, big insurance. All what is this? You were doing it. Were you telling the American people we're going to repeal it, but you were telling all the big money folks, "Oh, well, don't worry. No, sit down. Don't worry about it."
I think it's egg on the face to say you're going to boldly do something. It's like the guy who wants to fight, and he's just standing there behind his friend who's got his arm out. And he's just ready to fight, and the guy's it's like, "Don't do it." He's like, "I'll do it, but my wife's watching."
Yeah,
like, well, okay. Well, if you're gonna do it, shut your mouth.
Yeah,
that annoyed me to no end.
Well, see, but Trump is there, and Trump comes in. He's got these big, bold ideas, and my thought, in all earnestness, I thought, we're going to have a clean repeal on his desk when he gets here. We're going to have a bill that funds the building of the wall. We're going to have a bill that actually deports some people. We're going to do everything.
We're going to have him queued up for success.
Yeah, and this is going to be, and the tax, he's talked about tax. We're going to have a great tax reform bill. All this can be done in the first 100 days, and it didn't get done. And what happened is the American people, the conservatives, the great, what do they call it? The deplorables, the Hillary Clinton deplorables who supported Trump and his new populist movement. They said, "You're going to pay for this in 2018. and we did pay for it because if we would have delivered it,
Yeah.
I don't think we would have gotten crushed.
Right.
But we got crushed.
No, it looked like insincerity. It looked like ineptitude, and it looked like lack of will.
Well, it was all of those things.
Yeah.
It was all of those things.
Yeah, and then it was, and then what happens is all you need everybody like, and when they go, that's a loss.
Yeah,
Because you got to have everybody. They got to drive someplace. They got to turn in they got to mail. They got to be engaged. And when you're not succeeding, people disengage. It's like watching a game where your team's losing. You disengage.
Think of it as a coach going into the team before the game and giving this massive fired up talk, and you get out there, and the first play, you punt. I mean that's really what it felt like.
Yeah.
The guy that preceded me, who Matt Sam, preceded me in Congress, he used to tell me, Andy, sometimes I feel like crying. Sometimes I cry myself to sleep because it's so bad. And I'm not that kind of guy. And I'm telling you, about a month in, I'm saying, I know what he meant now. You could literally cry yourself to sleep. It's so bad.
He's mad.
Yeah.
He's mad.
Mad is mad. And what happens is, and that's what happens. You either succumb to the frustration and develop Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Where you begin to agree with your captors.
Yeah, you put a toga on.
Yeah, exactly. Or you keep fighting. And I said I came here to fight, and what's the worst thing that happens to me? I get unelected for fighting real hard. Okay, so I fight my guts out, and then if I get unelected, I go back to the great life I had before I came to Congress.
Yeah. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
So was there like for you Freedom Caucus types, was there like hope in the air? Because I got to tell you, election night, I couldn't stop smiling for maybe a year. Election night, I just sat there because I was like, Hillary Clinton for 8 years probably. And then I was sitting in my phone, just started blowing up because I've been 12 years now doing this.
Yeah.
I've been 12 years talking about politics, interwoven into my company, which everyone said it's going to destroy me. I sat in the dark. I was flabbergasted. I was like, what? You gotta be kidding me. I think he was as shocked as I was.
I think Trump was surprised somewhat. I don't know that. I haven't ever asked him, but I think he was somewhat surprised. We were thrilled. Well, my wife and I believed Trump was going to win. We always believed he was going to win because I was knocking doors. I was out there in the community. And I'll always remember a guy, my opponent had put up all these signs all over my congressional district that said, Biggs is a bully. I thought, well, that's okay. So I'm knocking on a door one time, and the guy says, what do you want? I said, well, I'm Andy Biggs running for Congress. He says, are you the guy that they say is a bully? And I said, yeah. He says, you got my vote. I want a bully. I don't want any more of this mamby crap. And that's why I knew Trump was going to win. People wanted a change. And that's why I think the 2020, when you start looking at 2020, you go, okay, that doesn't make sense. That just doesn't make sense. Why did we win as much as we did everywhere? And then somehow Donald Trump doesn't win.
So I have interviewed most of the gang here in Arizona that did the recall, that pushed it, that spearheaded the movement. And after many hours of talking, and you could watch it all live, anybody who is observing and wants to check me on this, after all this time directly with everybody, and all the months of investigation, and all, not a clear answer from anybody. It's squishy.
Yeah.
And so I try to be a neutral. I mean, I'm a conservative guy, but when it comes to making decisions, I try to stand in the middle and see which side of the boat the water falls down on, and go, okay, I'm going to make my call. I can't get a square, straight answer from anybody. I think our election has always got maybe 0.5% of
fraud. You can always have fraud.
You can always have fraud.
Yeah.
You can always. Sometimes accidents look like fraud. Sometimes the slowness of government can look like fraud. The slowness of reporting deaths, the slowness of aggregating the information. Yeah, there's just general bureaucratic incompetence.
Right.
And so if you hit the stopwatch at any given moment, there's a trail of comets, kind of bullshit that hasn't caught up to the paperwork yet. but that all gets caught in elections. The people that have died, the people that have moved, the people who got a mail-in ballot, who voted at the ballot. There's a little bit. I couldn't get a straight answer from anybody. And I mean, I have sat and asked straight up, tell me where, give me clarity. So anybody watching, and nobody could. Not well. And
about fraud or
about
integrity?
fraud in the election.
Yeah.
They gave me all examples of little bits of fraud here and there, but nothing concrete about, hey, the fraud was this number. Here's what happened. We know when, we know why. It sounds like we did a paper hand recount that came in reasonably close to what had been reported. Now, I look at that and I go, okay, so there's a little bit of mess to it all. And if you look really hard, you find the mess. But I just felt like white women just abandoned the what seemed like maybe the hostility of his presidency.
Yeah. So,
am I wrong?
No, I think suburban women left.
Yeah.
Donald Trump. They didn't like the mean tweets.
Yeah.
And I think that was a huge problem. But I also want to add, I want to give you a specific data point that I don't know what it means ultimately, but it is why it was the basis. I had two bases for me objecting to Arizona's electors being seated on January 6, 2020.
Okay.
Number one, I went is the voter registration date. So our voter registration date was supposed to terminate, and I want to say October 3rd. I can't remember the exact date now. And you had a left-wing group funded ostensibly, perhaps some have suggested by George Soros, that was out there registering pre-COVID, thousands a week. And then when COVID came in and all the lockdowns in early spring of 2020, they went down to 250 a week or whatever it was. I mean, it was a significant reduction, and so they were beefed, and so they ultimately brought a lawsuit, and they bring the lawsuit, and they go in, and the federal district court says, "Hey, you know what? Arizona, your law is constitutional. Your deadline is constitutional. It's appropriate. It is right. But even though it's wrong, even though it's right constitutionally, we kind of feel bad for these guys because COVID's kind of extraordinary and they couldn't get out there. So we're going to just ignore your law, which we've said is constitutional, and we're going to give you 23 extra days. Give these guys 23 extra days to go out and register voters." Okay? Well, anybody who registered post October 3rd, or whatever the magic date was, those are illegal voters. And the number was about 40,000.
Yeah.
So the question, which I have not been able to get resolved, is how many of those 40,000 illegal voters actually voted?
The problem is when we win on a technicality, we lose on the sentiment of your average person.
Right. That's the opposite of Ben Shapiro's my facts don't care about your feelings. That's the opposite. That's my feelings don't care about your facts.
Right.
I mean,
right.
So I don't view that as a technicality. I
view it as the law.
That's what I view it as. The law is the law, and if you didn't like the law, you should have changed it.
We've seen the worst things that we see going on in our nation right now is an abdication of our elected class, just following through on what I tell people all the time. The way you fix our country is you sunset clause and do a balanced budget amendment. Sunset clause, so the Congress has got real work to do, renewing things that die every 10 years automatically. Keep them busy because the country's working just fine if we just follow the damn laws we have.
Yeah, it's so I think one of our biggest problems is the rule of law has been flushed, and I mean I think that gets to your point. And my position is this: that you can't have freedom without the rule of law because the rule of law protects the weak.
It's the structure too, right?
Yeah. But government's sole purpose is to protect the rights of everybody, and we particularly understand that there will be those who are bullies and those who are weak and can't defend themselves. So we erect these laws. That's why we have and we have moral codes that say you can't defraud somebody, you can't kill somebody, you can't assault somebody, you can't steal from them. Because we recognize that in order to be free, you protect property and life. Those things have to be protected. But what's happening now is we have an abdication. We've set aside the rule of law. I mean, the border's a prime example of it. And now, you got Cory Bush again talking about defunding police and not enforcing the laws, and that's this whole social justice movement is to basically say, well, you're a white male, Greg, you've been very successful, so here's what we're going to do. We're gonna score you, and so because of your racial profile, your economic profile, you don't get as many rights as somebody who is demographically different.
Yeah.
And that is a violation of the rule of law.
Well, I think the cornerstone of Western democracy is the rule of law. And what we have is half of our elected officials are deconstructing the rule of law everywhere. Mm-hmm. These district attorneys in big cities across this country who have stopped punishing criminals.
Right.
A free, open society is kind of a messy enterprise. And there is the opportunity for people, because there isn't a pure safety net for everyone, there is an opportunity for people to break the rules all the time. So there's a constant grind of dealing with this. So at the municipal level, they've abdicated their responsibility. You can see it when you drive across this town and every town in America. Where have all these zombies come from? It is the zombie apocalypse. Where are all these? You look at these people with their vacant faces and their missing teeth and their weird tattoos, and these are not homeless bums who are back from the war and they haven't adjusted. These are drug users. What has happened? So we've abdicated our responsibility there. It's the erosion of culture. We've abdicated our responsibility in public schools. Yeah. And now kids, I talk to kids about American history. My kids are really into it because I'm a lunatic. But when I talk to other people, they get goosebumps and think, God, why don't we learn this at school? And I scratch my head and go, why don't we learn this at school? I want to talk about some other stuff. Let's run into it.
Yeah.
I see the erosion of the rule of law as the cornerstone of the breakdown of everything. You don't have the border. You don't have cities contained. You have violence in New York. You have escalating death and murder everywhere. What's going on?
Yeah. I will tell you, the rule of law is part of the destruction of the institutions that we have, whether they're religious institutions, educational institutions, etc. The rule of law, what's going on is this is. I know this may sound a little bit radical, but this is the proletarian revolution that you would normally have, like the Bolsheviks did.
I was just going to say it's a Bolshevik revolution,
and that's really
except here it's a bullshit revolution.
Yeah, that's right. And but it's just a slow moving revolution, and that's what basically critical race theory and that critical theory. So, Habermas and the Frankfurt School and all those guys, they're talking about critical theory. They're talking about a middle-class, slow-moving, take over the institutions, indoctrinate revolution that, normally you think of revolutions happening overnight, quick coup and those type of things. No, this is as you say, a cultural revolution. This is something, Mao began in 1948, and then in the 1960s he started the Cultural Revolution, which was a disaster for China. But the point is, it's an attempt to actually emasculate everything that represents the foundation and structure of American free market freedom and our history. So that's why when you talk about history, people don't know what you're talking about. My wife teaches Constitution classes, and kids get excited about it, and they understand it. They understand this stuff.
When I talk to young people about the Barbary Pirate Wars under Jefferson's administration and the liberation of European slaves that had been held for centuries under Muslim rule in North Africa as part of the bribe to passage business of the Mediterranean.
Right.
When I talk about that with people, they first they think you're like, is this true? I'm like, yeah, this is actual, like, no kidding, real history. And then they're completely blown away. And then I try to always connect it to the beacon of hope that America has been for 250 years. We don't have to do things the old way. You can be free. You can determine your own future. And self-determinism of this country is the thing that flies in the face of lefties and Marxists. We're not wearing your mask like you didn't do.
Yeah.
They don't want us determining ourselves.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, We are a free society. We're meant to be free. The whole notion of coming over here and getting back to the history of the the Puritans and the Pilgrims who were oppressed. They were coming over so they could worship, and they were coming over and they saw what happened, because you had a couple of basically Marxist or socialist experiments that were thrust upon the first settlements, and they failed, utterly failed. It wasn't until people said everybody's going to carry their own weight, everybody's going to do what the best they can, that all of a sudden people were self-accountable. Didn't matter whether you were crazy, you understood, I need to work, I need to plant, I need to work. And that free market system, which is supportive of freedom and self-determination, you get to choose who you want to be, this agency. That's the history of America.
And it's the core of who we are today. When
Yeah.
I sit at a table of Germans in Europe and we're talking about politics and business, it is the defining feature. They say, usually they're like very surprised that I like read, because they think we're a bunch of troglodytes over here. But I start talking with them and I said, well, what's different is my people, we stole our freedom from the king and declared ourselves connected to God.
Right. Yes.
You
Amen.
didn't. I said, your people didn't. You were granted your freedom. You've been given your freedom, and it can be taken away at any moment. And we don't have that. We don't have that problem.
Well, you couldn't have said it better. I mean, that you have these rights that either are inherent in you as a gift from God, a recognition of your being made in the image of God, or you have some dictatorial group
What some person says.
yeah, you can do this, and we see this happen in Europe all the time. They grant you a right, and then they take it away.
Yeah, well,
They
look what's going on in Canada right now with this trucker thing. Like, can you imagine the government mobilizing against the blue-collar working class that moves everything?
Yeah.
Like, if the truckers just said, hey, let's stay home for 30 days. Let's see how much they want to mess with us. Can you find me for staying home too?
Yeah.
Because, they're seizing their money. They're talking about seizing their property, and they're finding them. I'm like, and they're not doing anything violent. They're protesting.
Yeah, they're honking the horns and parking. And I mean, that's silly. I would have sworn, and I'm not kidding you, when Trudeau was speaking before the Canadian Parliament the other day, I would have sworn I saw a little Hitler mustache starting above his lip.
It's very much Hitler stuff, because you have lost power. If you're battling truckers, you've lost power. You are not in power.
That's
you
right.
are a feckless beta male.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on.
Beta male, I like that.
Skinny jean wearing beta male. Soy boy. You're officially a soy boy. He's a soy boy if there ever was one. We covered the elections, current state of play. We talked a little bit about crime, border. What are you in at all on what's going on with our energy policy in this country? Do you see I know you see the same thing we all see, but from the inside, what can you tell us about what happened? Because it looks to me and a lot of us looking in from the outside like there has been an intentional effort to undermine the independence and energy freedom of America, and now it's caused Ukraine. It's causing it.
Yeah, you sound like me. I actually gave multiple interviews over the last couple of weeks talking about what Biden did that has produced the Ukraine. So here's the deal. He started off immediately getting rid of Keystone Pipeline. Now, Keystone Pipeline is actually more environmentally friendly and safe than the trucks that are flowing through.
Yeah.
He also, and people forget this because this is critical, he actually put, by his rule, he stopped exploration, development, and refining of oil and gas in the United States. New stuff. So that made us not energy independent anymore. He immediately
just kind of parentheses for everybody listening. Imagine every business or any industry that you work for or a part of. Imagine the government comes in and says, we can have no more of those businesses, only what currently exists. No more new restaurants.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
it's the same.
It's the same thing.
Crazy.
Yeah, so he does that, and at the same time he's doing that, they're green lighting the Nord Stream 2 later on, and we start Well, surprise, surprise, gas goes up, starts going up. And he says, well, good grief. You know that they know some economics because he says, we need OPEC to produce more. We need Russia to give us more.
What is it, 1982?
Yeah. I mean, this is so stupid. And so here we sit where they've attacked that. Now, the other thing that I think showed amazing fecklessness that led to the Ukraine, a couple other things, is we immediately went in and said, the New START treaty, okay, here's what we're going to do. I know someone criticized me and said, oh, well, you didn't get that right. No, I got it right. This is what happened. We basically extended Russia's timeline to comply with New START 2 for 5 years. We got nothing for that. That's my point. We got nothing for that.
Right.
And so Putin said, okay, well, this guy's an idiot. And then Afghanistan showed that Biden is weak and feckless. Why do I believe that? Because I believe that very serious-minded people understood President Trump's plan to withdraw from Afghanistan in a way where we didn't give Bagram Air Base. When we gave Bagram Air Base, I turned to my staff, I turned to my wife, I turned to anybody that was close. I said, this is it. It will be a rout. This is terrible.
Right.
And
because we could control that.
Because we could control that. We could have had an orderly
exit
withdrawal.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff led to the same thing. So you see Putin kind of messing around the Ukraine. Now, he does that from time to time.
Yeah.
He does that because he's pissed off because he wanted Ukraine. And he went in, took Crimea and all that stuff. But you also saw at the same time, Kim Jong-un has stepped up and renewed their nuclear program and shooting their ballistic missiles over Japan. You saw Xi Jinping, who had come out under Trump and said, we will not do anything until after the midterm, and then we'll discuss resolving the Taiwan issue. Why did he do that? Because his generals are antsy and anxious to retake Taiwan. He has now stopped that rhetoric of holding back, Xi Jinping, because Biden is so weak. So that's why you end up with Ukraine. Now, if you want to solve that problem, what you do is you say, okay, we're going to reinstate the Keystone Pipeline, and we're going to allow basically exploration, development, and refining.
Drop the price of oil, $30 a barrel globally. Russia doesn't have the money to F around as much.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. But the other thing,
because they're basically a petrochemical welfare state.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
totally.
I think a lot of people don't really realize that it's controlled by Putin and it funds his military. And when it's at $60 a barrel globally,
that's right.
He doesn't have the money to screw around because at some point he's got to keep people from rioting.
And why do you think that when Trump was president, it held him in check? Because we were moving and we were exporting. We started exporting natural gas. So all of those things can be resolved. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Most of this stuff can be resolved fairly quickly, whether it's the border, whether it's energy policy. Just
can you imagine if Biden just rolled up on Friday and he figured out what day of the week it was and where he was, and that he was actually the president. And he said, you know what? We are gonna enter a oil war with Russia. We are gonna supply the world with energy and us, and just the announcement alone. And we're gonna open up. We're gonna fast track exploration rights. He would drop the price of oil so fast. The Arabs wouldn't have any control because OPEC would be defunct because we're basically undercutting the whole raison d'etre of OPEC.
Yeah.
The Russians, he'd go, oh shit, we're not going to have $100 a barrel oil. That's a problem for me. And then China, Trump kept China on their heels, having to deal with him. And while they were dealing with him, they weren't strategizing on Taiwan. You see what's going on in this town. Taiwan's buying up this town.
Yeah. Yeah, and they have to because they've got to be ready to move.
Yeah,
right?
I think they know it's coming. I think they've already. Yeah, I think it's a fait accompli. They've put so much money here, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and well, particularly where you are, which is on the Northwest Valley.
Yeah.
I mean, they've really done a ton here. But I mean, I look at it and I say, you asked me if I could imagine Biden rolling up to that. No, I cannot.
But could you? We'd all be like, okay,
yeah,
but that would be the counter, wouldn't it?
That would be the counter. I mean, so it isn't sending 8,500 troops over to Poland and Romania.
No.
What it is to say, you know what? Hey, we've got some domestic policy. If we clean up, guess what? This and it happens so quickly. It is if you take off those restrictions on energy development, It happens. It happens quickly. It's just like people say, "Well, how long do you think it would take?" Well, when we on the border, when
Take a week.
I said, if Joe Biden said, "You're not welcome. We're not giving you amnesty, and we're going to enforce our laws," well, the cartels would go ballistic. They would go crazy. They would test you for a week or two, and when you started sending people back, and you told Mexico, "You're going to take these people back. They're going to be there," because that's actually in compliance with international law.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the border goes from 250,000 a month, which, by the way, that's about what it is with when you include the gotaways.
Yeah.
It goes down to about where it was when Trump was there, and you had 30,000, 25,000
A
a month.
manageable amount.
It's a manageable amount,
Yeah.
and we can control that and start sending people back, and people quit coming from 140 plus different nations.
You know what I would do if I was Biden right now? I mean, I would
Go get an ice cream cone. If you were Biden.
Besides that, besides put on my Depends, what I would do is I would reach out to Putin and say, hey, listen, if you do this, here's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna send tanks. We're not gonna get into a big war with you. I'm gonna defund you.
Yeah. Well, and what would happen is, so I would also pull the plug on the Nord Stream 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you have to pull the plug on that because it's not done yet. So nothing's flowing through there yet.
Right.
They're 90% done. Well, stop it.
Right.
You say, okay, we're done. That's no good anymore.
Yeah.
And you do that, and then you ramp up our development, and all of a sudden, we're looking pretty good. And hey, by the way, Russia, we're not going to bring in 800,000 barrels a day from you. Why?
And then negotiate with them. Now it's a time to negotiate.
Yeah.
Now it's a time to send in the diplomats and say, hey, look, let's get you a way that saves face for you to stand this down. We don't need a war in Europe. That's why NATO's there, for God's sake. We know how that works. 2 times in the last century, it was awful.
Yeah. Yeah, no. It's
Look,
you
and I should run for president, okay?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality is there are things you can do if you have smarts.
Just today you could do it. Today.
Yeah. I mean, and some of it doesn't even require congressional action. It could be done through authorities given to the executive branch.
When the election happened, all of my friends collectively gasped. And I said,
in 16 or 20?
In 20. I said, all we have to do is 1 year in, this whole thing is over. I said, it's already over right now because they don't have a mandate to rule and they're going to get blocked everywhere. And they mostly did. Because you can't come in and run like you have a 10-seat majority in the Senate. You can't come in and function that way when you have a 50-50 House. I mean, a 50-50 Senate. And I'm in 20. How much are they up in the House?
About 5.
It's no majority at all. It's a big plural country to be acting like you won by some huge landslide.
Agreed. I mean, and that's the whole thing is that they are running the country as if they have this mandate.
Right.
But what they're doing too is this is you got a picture of Teddy Roosevelt in your office. Mm-hmm. So TR was a big expand the executive power guy. I mean, he really was.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And Biden, and I would say this, I don't know that he knows what's happening, but the executive power is being expanded dramatically right now. And if we don't put that genie back in the bottle, and the only way you can put it back in the bottle is, and in past history, you would have Congresses of the same party as the president saying, we're not going there because you're taking our power and authority away. And we've lost that.
Congress seems to have abdicated in the last 20 years. And they have sit by and let the executive step into a vacuum because they haven't been completing their job.
Yeah. I actually heard a member of Congress say one time, probably 25 years ago, he said, look, it was over the ADA, Americans with Disability Act. He said, look, we purposely put in some pretty vague terms, knowing that the courts would have to interpret them and that executive branch agencies would have to also interpret them through rulemaking. Well, the announcer says, why? Well, because it helps us to avoid accountability. And that is what is, as soon as you had members of Congress realize, hey, I can avoid accountability by just putting a piece of crap legislation together where I delegate authority to everybody away from me. And so when Department of Health and Human Services does something that's problematic, I say, golly, wish I could do something about that. And because they're the ones who did it. We're going to clean up DHS. Why not just say all those? We need to take away rulemaking authority back. Take that away and bring it back to the legislative branch. We're elected by the people. We would be held accountable.
Yeah.
And we would have better product.
Yes, because the people defining and codifying the product are accountable to no one, and they don't go away.
Amen. That's it. That's part of the huge problem we have.
And we've let the bureaucracy take over. And Congress has gotten dysfunctional in a way that, it's easy to just beat on people from afar. It's easy to beat on groups. Consensus is challenging.
Yeah.
It is. But the last 50 years, Congress has, I think, not done a great job. The last time I saw Congress kind of get together and do something was Gingrich's contract with America. It was a pretty solid, palatable plan that a group could run with and show results.
Yeah, well, but even then it was only Republicans. And it is, look, it's become very, very divisive, and it's very polarized. I don't think it's been this polarized in Congress since pre-Civil War times. If you go back and study and look at that stuff.
Yeah. People forget we had a duel on the floor, right?
Yeah, a duel on the floor. Look, here's the thing, and people say, Andy, this is the worst ever. I say, well, I remember when people were shooting each other. Right. 780,000 Americans killed each other.
It's not the worst ever.
Yeah,
it's contentious as hell.
Yeah, it's contentious. Look, I got people that were work with me my first 2 years in Congress who won't even talk to me now.
Yeah,
and that's fine. I mean, that's their choice. But the reality is, there's a huge schism in America, and part of it is because it's institutional, and part of it is because, just like you sense it, just like you were hoping for something in 2016, it's because people on the right, we sense that the people on the left want to kill American freedom and who we are.
Right.
And people on the left do want to kill America. And they do have an agenda. So these very ideological agendas that are out there, they're not conducive to consensus. And so just 2 quick points. James Madison, the founders, I love these guys, but if you read what they're talking about, they expected Congress to be something really difficult to get legislation through. Why? Because they expected you to have a good product at the end. You wouldn't just burp out and spit out all the crap that we do today. And so they intended to. There was supposed to be screening and sieves, and that you had to go through and filtering. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a pretty important thing. And then you know what? And then we get to today. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that you see what I'm going to call stratification of Congress. And the reason is, where people stand. You can find out where people stand.
Right.
And that's what the 24-hour news cycle has done. You know where people stand. You can say, I like that guy. I don't like that guy. I like that guy some of the time. I don't like him a lot of the time. Or I like the guy a lot of the time. I don't like him all the time. The point is, you can get more clarity.
More transparency.
You can get more transparency ultimately.
When I hear people that are really disgruntled, I say you need to read the first couple of pages of George Washington's farewell to the second to Congress after his second term.
Yeah,
read that. Because all you'd have to do is change the names. It sounds like today.
Yeah, it does. I would encourage people to read Thomas Jefferson's second inaugural address. Beautiful piece of work describing it, about what the duties are of, and it's just so fantastic.
It's amazing how many of us who are considered to be kind of right-wing extremists and lefties look at us and think we're nutters. We're students of history. We're students of grand ideas. We're students of the core pillars that made this place what it is. Critical race theory and Marxism did not make this the shining city on the hill. And we have to remember that. Quick lightning round, because I know you got to go.
Okay.
Who do you think will be our next governor?
I don't know. I really don't know.
You got any favorites?
Matt Sam is my favorite.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think it's going to be a Democrat. It's whoever pulls out of the Republican primary, I believe, whoever wins that.
I hope it's a Republican. This state has, there's no end of the shit show stuns that have come out of the last 2 elections for this state. I've been blown away.
Yeah.
I thought McCain was an anomaly. Then we got Sinema. Then we got Kelly. We got this Marxist running the city. I mean, I'm stunned.
But here's the way to think about it. Katie Hobbs, who is the presumptive nominee.
Right.
I know Katie. I've worked with Katie in the legislature. She is as radical as they come, but she has no coherent thought or plan. And my guess is she's going to pull a Biden in the basement, Mark Kelly in the basement type of thing, because if she debates somebody, she's going to get her tail kicked.
Yeah. I've had a chance to sit and talk with Carrie Lake. I've had a chance to sit and talk with Matt at length, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Don't know.
It's where the money and the substance. Will we get enough exposure to see the substance rise and see the fiscal responsibility of campaigns make it to the end? Because it's a marathon getting there.
It is, and it's the hardest work that either one of them will do.
Yeah,
it is. It is demanding.
I'll tell you one thing about her. She is not short on energy. She is out there hustling.
She is. She is.
Let's move on to the next thing. Sinema Kelly seats. Let's talk about, do you think Mark Kelly is going to lose his seat in this upcoming election?
It's close. This is really close.
Who's your pick for him?
I've stayed out of that race. I will tell you, any one of the Republican candidates, generic Republican, they're within probably 2-3 points of Mark Kelly. And I think once Mark Kelly's exposed a little bit more, and with a red wave that I think it won't be as dynamic in Arizona as other places, but it will be enough to carry Republican to the win.
I sure hope so. My friend, I love Arizona so much. I mean, I love this place.
Are you from here?
Yeah, I'm a native.
Where would you grow up in the Valley?
Yeah. I grew up 65th Street in Cactus.
Oh, really? Yeah. I love Arizona. I wouldn't live anywhere else.
I love this place.
It's just what ticks me off is as native guys, we understand Arizona's always been kind of an independent, a real independent streak, and I feel like we're getting claustrophobic.
We're getting sucked into this.
We're getting sucked in. It's claustrophobic.
The midterms. What do you think? Look, clearly what's going on, clearly they're not real bright and they're not very reactive and they're doubling down on most of their bullshit. Yeah. So, maybe they're backing off the mask mandates because they know it's bullshit too.
That's why.
I think they've drunk the Kool-Aid on everything else and they think it's true. So I don't think there's going to be a major sea change in their behavior. I think they're going to think they didn't do Build Back Better big enough.
Well, that's Cori Bush actually just said that yesterday. She said,
and I don't have TV, so I'm just guessing here.
Yeah, she just said, "Hey, we would have won by a big margin in 2020 if we would have been more radical, defunded the police, and put the
we should have killed the police and build back dumber. It would have been better."
Oh my gosh.
So basically, what do you think? What do you think? Based on a lot of years in politics, what's your take on what's going to happen? I believe that the Senate and the House will both become Republican.
Yeah, I agree. I think both.
How big?
Senate by maybe 2 seats max.
Okay.
The House, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, but if you look at the redistricting, it's been unkind to us. I've predicted 12-seat Republican majority by max. That's a max. And I did a show last week, and this guy, he's a great guy, I like him, but he said, it's 80 seats, Andy. You're going to have an 80-seat majority. Maybe the conditions indicate that we should have it in a majority like that, but we didn't control all the redistricting, and that is critical.
Yeah, the redistricting is a big deal.
Yeah,
and it
I think it's 12.
I
think it's 12 seats probably.
Okay, so does Trump run again or not? Yes or no?
Yes.
I think so too. And I think he's waiting to make sure that the midterms that he doesn't have an impeachment nightmare to follow him for his next presidency. That he's got Republicans in charge.
Yeah, I mean, he has to. And I don't think he is really fond of either one of the guys most likely to be leader in the Senate or the House.
I think we are going to get to see. Do you think he'll be elected president?
I do think so. I think he would win.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And then we will get to see the biggest political storm in 200 years.
Yeah. Here's the deal.
He's not naive. He knows who to bring in. They know the players, and they know what they're stepping into. Yeah. Very different than the first time, right?
Yeah, although there's people around him, I like
Yeah,
a lot of.
yeah,
But anyway, the point is, I think he's got in his mind how to do this stuff, and if he keeps focused on the big ticket items, which is what I think he will stay focused on,
Yeah.
I think the legislative branch will stay focused on the investigations that we have to do.
Yeah. I also think there'll be less. I think there will be less of the pushback from. I mean, he's going to get pushback from Republicans, but he won't get it like he did the first time.
Well, no, because I mean, he will. If he gets elected, he'll have a mandate, regardless of what the turn is. But I mean, 92% of Republicans still love Donald Trump.
Oh boy, I'm telling you, I'm almost giddy about it. So I'm just holding my breath. I think about his health, and I want him to remain healthy. I still think he's as mentally clear as he was in the first election. I like him.
I will tell you, as a guy who talked to him a lot during his tenure there, and I talked to him periodically since, the guy is sharp.
Yeah.
He is really sharp. He doesn't show any of the signs of onset of dementia that Joe Biden does.
Yeah, no, clearly. Well, Joe hasn't been using his brain for good 20, 30 years beforehand anyways.
Yeah, saved up.
So are there any big things coming that you see in Washington that you think are, they're not on the radar right now, but they're going to be a big deal?
Yeah, multiple things. The first one I'll talk about is the budgeting stuff. So the continuing resolution or short-term spending bill that will come in March. Right now, our good friends in the Senate, Mike Lee and a few others, are trying to hold that up to eliminate any funding for vax mandates, to make sure vax mandates leave.
Okay.
We need to be supportive of that effort. So there's that. You're gonna see the Democrats kind of ratchet down as much as they possibly can because they don't want to be controversial. Too late.
Yeah. Okay. We're kind of wrapping up our time, and I want to ask you. You can go first, and then I'll go second. I don't like to just come here and just do this pop machine gun questions. I like to just talk like guys and interact and kind of see what happens. I love the human experience of conversation. And if you do it with an open heart and an open mind, sometimes I'm moved by people's thinking. Sometimes it corroborates what I feel already, and other times I go, God, my horseshit meter just exploded. Let's say you were, the Almighty came down and said, I'm going to grant you one thing that I'm going to do for this country, and you will no longer have a say after this moment. It is the thing. What would that thing be for you?
That's a tough question. I mean, that really is a tough question. I mean, I can think of 5 things that need to happen to save the country. And if any one of them doesn't happen, I view the salvation of this country with a certain amount of...
You got the 5 pretty close on the tip of your tongue?
Yeah.
All right, let him rip, because the Almighty can change his mind. Her mind.
Yeah.
Its mind.
So the first thing you have to do every policy necessary to close our border. All right. That's the first thing.
Control the borders.
Yeah, you got to control the borders. Second thing, you have got to fix the federal budget. You have to fix the federal budget.
Which means each year Congress passing some sort of working, balanced, or working towards fiscal responsibility type budget that is sane, that connects the revenue to the spending somehow.
Exactly. And every day you wait, it gets worse.
Right.
Then you have to get back to the notion of energy independence. We have to be energy independent because it affects everything with your economy. It has to. You just have to do that. The fourth thing is you have to give parents the freedom of choice in education. And this isn't a federal issue. This should be a state issue. Freedom of choice in education and transparency over everything from school spending to curriculum and all of that. That's number 4. And number 5, you have to basically say, we're not going to intervene in anybody else's internal politics. I mean, we can criticize, we can work with our friends and our allies, but you have to do something more akin to what we did with the revamping of the Mexico-America Canadian trade talks. No more multilateral agreements. Any one of those 5, if we don't if we fail to do any one of those 5, I think that our kids and grandkids are in for a lot of struggle.
I agree with you on all 5 of them in the now and in the long run. I think the most important thing we do is we drop the hammer on what's being taught in schools, because if we continue to have a leftist, rudderless education, we are sending out millions of little commies who don't know what a spectacular place they're getting ready to piss on.
You're exactly right. That's why I mentioned you got to have parental choice, because the feds, we should just withdraw all funding for anybody, for states. We should get rid of the Department of Education. I mean, I've signed on the bill.
Totally agree.
I've sponsored that bill before. The point is, it gets to your point, and maybe this is one that I should have listed, is institutionally, America's in a real desperate spot because the left controls schools, corporate boards, churches,
media,
all the things that form public opinion and actually discourse is being censored and constrained by the institutions of schools. The schools are the first one. I mean, we're not even getting into post-secondary ed, which is a disaster right now.
Well, listen, you have a lot to do. I know you have to go. I would love at some point to have you back, maybe in a few months when you've got a few moments. I want to talk about a little bit about the January 6th Commission, which I equate to that to catching the teenagers smoking pot in the basement, and they've gone apoplectic about it. I'd like to talk to you about that. I'd like to talk to you about things coming up in the next Trump presidency and what you're doing to tee up for that. And I just got to tell you, it's an honor to have you in. It's a real pleasure. I am a chin out former Marine, red, white, and blue, love America, hard critic of my nation. And I hope it's been fun to be here.
It's been great. I loved the tour of your knife factory. I got to tell you, I'm astounded that sometime in the recent past you said, I think I'm going to start a knife factory. You know?
It's like that too.
And I said, because the processes to go through to make it the world's best knife is just, it's just inspiring. But no, it's an honor to be with you. We loved it. My staff and David and I were out going around, and man, I was overwhelmed.
It's cool.
Done.
It's pretty cool.
It's cool. It's
Wait
cool.
till you see the new company. We'll have 300 to 500 employees, and it'll be the biggest knife company in America.
You guys were showing me the prototype and explaining to
it's
me.
Nuts.
I said, where are you putting them all? And they said, Greg, he's kind of...
Yeah, I'm always working stuff.
Yeah, he's got a deal.
Well, listen, when you guys are ready for a knife for anything in Congress, you just let me know, because we're right here in Arizona, and we'll make it for you, okay?
Bless you.
What a pleasure having in.
Great to be with you.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
sir.
What an honor it's for me.
America.
Thanks.